have companies improved the productivity and retention of millennials and Gen Z? And that's something that Prashant is going to throw light on. Can HR teams release their time, from boarding Excel sheets? Of course, you need it, and PowerPoint preparations, but rather focus on truly enabling, hands on the ground, on a shirt sleeves approach. Prashant is again going to talk about it. And what are the latest trends in employee engagement? What is different that W.E Matters is going to bring to the table? So, with that, let me pass on the first question to Prashant. So, Prashant, there was a time when CEOs were very serious about employee engagement, and some of them continue to do. However, in the last 10 years, while they still believe in its importance, do they still really act on it, and why?
Thank you, Augustus.
You can call me Augie,
Thanks,
Prashant.
Augie, and thanks, Dr. Devarajan, and thanks to Rupa and the BCIC team for making this happen, inviting me. And Dr. Devarajan, your expectation I've noted down, and I'll try to do my best to respond to it. And Augie, coming back to your question on, uh, see, most CEOs are actually serious about employee engagement, so I'm not taking it away from them. The only challenge is that finally CEOs are paid for delivering revenue growth and profit growth. And the business teams are aligned with the objective of revenue growth and profit growth. So let me put it the other way around. Even if the CEO wants to drive employee engagement, if employee engagement is not delivering revenue growth and profit growth, the business leaders and business managers will not be keen on driving employee engagement. And beyond a point, the CEOs may not be able to push the business leaders and business managers because a rhetoric that all of us as CEOs and CHROs have heard from business managers and business leaders that should we do business or should we engage employees? Now, if that is a trade-off, my response to all the business managers was always that please do business. If it is one or the two, please focus on business because that is more important. Because if there's no cash, the company will be bankrupt. So you got to first take care of what is important. That said, why is this situation happening? This situation is happening because we had two wonderful models. Gallup launched in 1992 and Aon Hewitt's model launched in 1994. Both are wonderful models. I have huge respect for both the models. I've learned everything from Gallup and Aon Hewitt uh, and their engagement models. That said, what has happened is that in 92, 94, uh, the working population was 90% of baby boomers and silent generation. Silent generation are people born between 1925 and 1944, and baby boomers are born between 45 and uh, 64. Now, these two generations are kind of, that time they were 28 and 48 years old. Now they are 78 years old and 58 years old, right? So silent generation is out of workforce. Baby boomers account for less than 1% of the workforce. Even between 2012 and 22, in 2012, Gen Z who were born 95 or later were not working because they were only 17 years old. And the majority of the population was Gen X and Gen Y. Gen Y born between 1980 and 94. Uh, and still a lot of baby boomers. But in last 5, 6 years, as Gen Z has entered the workforce, and we analyzed our data and we figured out that all the surveys that we've done in the last 2 years, if we take the analysis of the generations there, so Gen X is less than 10%, Gen Y is 50%, and Gen Z is 40%. Now, the old models do not cater to the expectations of the new generations, and therefore the impact on business is not seen and not quantified. And therefore, the problem is more with the prevailing models than with the line managers or line leaders. We've got to demonstrate to them that this really helps them improve their business performance. So I'll just share some research from World Economic Forum. Uh, and I mean, a lot of us in this gathering today are from all these three generations. So Pankaj and I certainly belong to Gen X. Now these people, the Gen X guys, grew up when there was license Raj in India. They were workaholic, because there was scarcity and whatever they were getting, they had to maximize. And their main objective was providing for the family, right? They were not born with technology, but they tried adopting the technology. And therefore, you see them on LinkedIn mostly, and to some extent WhatsApp, etc. The Gen Y uh, and Gen X was typically the children of silent generation who were born in British period, and to some extent they had either seen or heard of the whole slavery story. Gen Y was brought up by baby boomers who grew up in free India and who were more well off. They saw the growth in free India, etc., etc. So therefore, Gen Y became very idealistic. They saw the economic boom of the country, and they were, they were like, "Don't teach me, let me do it." And they were more about having experiences. And as they were growing, they came across mobiles and mobile technology. So they were like pioneers, and they felt that Gen X is lagging behind. And if you see the social media preferences, it's mostly Facebook and Instagram, whereas Gen Z was born with mobile. They didn't know how anybody could live without mobile or Google search engine or Wikipedia, etc. Encyclopedia, which was more Gen X, had gone into history. Maybe Gen Y also used encyclopedia a little, but Gen Z never used it. But what happened was that Gen Z was brought up by Gen X, who had seen five recessions, and therefore they saw their parents or their uncles or their neighbors or friends' parents losing jobs, going through financial crisis, and therefore they're more pragmatic. And unlike Gen Y, they focus on saving money, and they're mostly on Snapchat and Instagram. So that the three generations had very different hues during their childhood as they were growing up, and therefore their motivators are also very different. Gen X needs empowerment, needs, now we can go to the next slide, Pankaj. Gen X needs empowerment, right? They're more driven by compensation. They're saying knowledge sharing, learning, and can everything be fair, right? Now Gen Y, Gen Z is saying this is kind of given. Compensation, I mean, how can you get me to work without compensation? And just as things are given, both the generations are driven by purpose, but Gen Z also has a overtone of money and job security, having seen recessions and job losses. Both love experiences, but Gen Y would want to be only mentored and not as only, sorry, coached and not mentored, whereas Gen Z would want to be mentored. They're saying, don't beat around the bush, tell me what has to be done and I'll do it. Right? Gen Y, therefore, is very collaborative, whereas Gen Z is quite competitive. So for Gen Y, work is like their life, but Gen Z is saying, hey, tell me what are my salary benefits, etc., and what am I expected to do, and I'll deliver. So Gen Z is a little more transactional because their trust in employers is little lower, having seen what companies have done to people during this issue. So these are some of the nuances which have to be factored in if we have to determine the mm, determine the uh, change in expectation and deliver to the change expectations and therefore drive impact on business. And if we can drive impact on business, if we can quantify, I'm sure the business leaders and managers will be quite convinced to drive engagement because that helps them perform. And I'm sure then CEO will also have a kind of incentive to work with business leaders and managers to drive engagement. And if all these people are committed to driving engagement, CHRO is no longer then an enabler because he understands the people issues and engagement issues. He can use these models to predict future performance and attrition. And therefore, he is as much a party to driving business as the business leaders because as Augie and Dr. Devarajan rightly said that there are only two resources, financial resources and people resources. Almost all companies worth their name in or worth their salt in any industry have access to financial resources. So what that is no longer the competitive advantage. So what's the competitive advantage? Competitive advantage people. So if we can attract the right kind of people and if we can get the best out of them, uh, that's what will ensure market share and victory in the market. And that's where the CHRO actually becomes a business leader rather than a people leader.